more complicated over here.
Sure.
And it's a simple life over there. I'll be honest. So
it's nice.
It's very nice to go and see it. You know,
I love that
place. It's simple. It's great. You know, we can help them out. That's the thing is it seems like there's this idea that it's like a lost cause. It's not a lost cause. Our community is very smart, so we can definitely come up with ways to survive and continue on like for the past 6,700 years.
Right. This is like
and it's not just misinformation that's out there. There's just a lot of information. And it can be confusing. So just you know, with all the because of the history and how many different groups of people went through and just kind of how it was recorded, who was recording it, what terms they used, how they came up with those terms. So, you know, not just misinformation. It's just, you know, a lot of different information. It can be confusing. And, but it goes back to the language. And if you just study the language, and you can definitely learn, you know, identity and history and all that too. So.
Sure.
And you don't have to get that deep into studying the language. You have, you know, really the foundational alphabet, and then you'll learn. And you know, because the information is so available out there on the internet, you can translate stuff now. So it's really it's much easier than you know before, where you just didn't know any language. There's no phone in your pocket to type in the words in one and get the translation.
You know, on the topic of lost cause. If you believe it's a lost cause, it will be a lost cause. And it takes an entire nation to build a nation. And I don't need everybody, you know, picking up hammers and tools to build a nation.
Yeah.
All we need is for people to at least believe in its possibility. Yeah. That's it. It's a group manifestation effort. If you believe in it, there will be people that'll naturally rise up to make those things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think our generation can do that. You know, our parents' generation, they came over here, the new country, trying to make new opportunities, and they did that. You know, a lot of them were they were working most of the time, so they don't have time to study the history. They didn't have time to teach the history. That stuff was really, you know, put on the church and stuff like that in different organizations.
Right.
But overall, you know, there was no like Chaldean history class and I think the high school and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's the church has done the best that they could.
Yeah,
it's not their responsibility. It really isn't. We put a lot of responsibility on the church. A lot of people think it's a church that should step up and create schools and this and that, and that's great. Maybe if they want to, they can. But it's really on us to do the work of the everyday cultural education, preservation, and integration.
Yeah.
So that way we don't lose the beautifulness that we have. And it's really unique. I mean, when you delve into the history, there's not many people that can lay claim to the fact that they have a direct lineal connection to the founders of civilization.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really incredible thing.
And even the like DNA, I don't know if you looked at the DNA or anything like that.
I have,
but
yeah.
I've done a DNA test, and that's incredible, to be honest with you. And there's, you know, the X chromosome history DNA analysis, and then there's a Y chromosome, Y clades. It's crazy. So like my genetic father that I did analysis on, they range between like 2000 and 1600 BC.
That's crazy.
My genetic father, like, isn't it insane?
That's 4,000 years ago.
These are just estimates right now. It's still going.
Sure.
There's like, you know, different.
Might even be older.
Yeah, it could be older. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's likely. I mean, based on the history and what we know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too is, you know, genetics is 50 years old. You know, as from like 1950, I think, is when, you know, kind of DNA was discovered, right? So you're talking about, and these analysis that they've been doing it's been very iterative, long standing. So, but now they're still taking more samples. And interesting, I saw that there's going to be a report, maybe 2020, end of 24, maybe 25, of samples from Kalhu Nimrod in Iraq. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
Interesting. They found some remains there. And
so I mean, they've all these archaeologists, they have these remains and stuff like that. So I'm sure these genealogists, they go and they get some of these samples and they just test, because it's just a cotton swab, so they can get a lot of from just a little strand.
Yeah,
so it's really crazy.
That is really crazy.
And even, you know, it just confirms that like just this long-standing lineage that we've like really have had.
Where we come from is a very emotionally and closely held,
like your birthright, right?
Tradition. I mean, when you challenge someone's identity, it's something that is very it's a confrontational topic.
It's sensitive.
Very sensitive.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to go through that. Our people have gone through enough.
Yeah.
Coming from war, coming from lesser opportunity, and having to uproot their lives. Some of them, I mean, at middle age, with 9 children, have to come here. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like. The topic of identity is, we want to remove the emotion out of it, because when you remove the emotion out of it, you're able to really delve into the facts without feeling that you've got to challenge something. So you and I went to Iraq back in September. We went with Nineveh Rising, nonprofit organization that's doing really incredible work in the homeland and helping a lot of people out. I know that they did a computer lab, so we went there, see how we can be of service to our brothers and sisters in Iraq, while also exploring our very rich history through churches, monasteries, and just meeting regular people, hanging out and having a good time. Lots of great times.
Casino.
Yeah, casino. And it's not what you think. It's not the casinos like MGM or anything.
Not the 3, anything like the 3 in Detroit.
Well, maybe we'll post a picture of the casino so you know what we're talking about. But it really inspired some deep conversations with you and I and several of the other people that we shared very close quarters with. You're on a 20-person Mercedes Sprinter van, all day together. So we had a lot of conversations, many hours of travel time to talk about many different topics. And one of them is
experienced a lot of checkpoints.
Yeah, lots of checkpoints.
Military checkpoints, yeah.
Yeah, not a single problem though. Not a single problem. So don't...
Just annoying.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
whatever. It's just part of the system.
Doing business.
Yeah, I guess.
In Iraq,
it's annoying, dude.
It is what it is. But one of the things that we talked about, which is of great importance, is, our Chaldean identity, our church, our origins, our brotherhood, things that we have in common with the Assyrians, Syriacs, Arameans, not Armenians, but Arameans, that all speak the same language, that live probably within 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Pray to the same saints.
Yep, pray the same saints, same Jesus, same everything. Yeah. And I don't know about you, and I think you're in the same boat, but I was brought up to believe that they were completely different people because they spoke a different dialect and went to a different church. And I say they, but I really mean that they're us. And that's what my journey in discovering my identity and what our real roots are, and where this has all come from and where it's going. We were able to really connect on this because you've done a lot of the same research and come to very similar conclusions.
So I was in high school, and when we were celebrating Ba'utha, my head of religion teacher told me that the book of Jonah and the story was a fake story. Mm. So that kind of threw me off.
This is at Brother Rice?
This is at Brother Rice, yeah. Yeah. I'm Roman Catholic. There is actually, if you look at this, there are a lot of Roman Catholic, I think the Roman Catholic Church, but there are scholars that they've taken the side that this was a fictional story. But of course, the Church of the East, have always believed that it was a real story. And there's a mausoleum of Jonah there. I believe it's a real story.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a parable or anything like that because it's not written like parables that are in the Bible, but that's a different conversation for time. But that put me on a spiral to search how is it real or is it fake or whatever, where we're from. And then, I learned more about Tel Kepa, how close it is to Nineveh, and, that kind of whole regard. So it puts you down a spiral. So I've gone through this spiral of, who we are, who our identity, and, where different civilizations have popped up over time, where they developed, where they moved, where they didn't move, all that stuff. So, but, coming back to Iraq, that was really, honestly, for me, it was like a real full circle for just everything I had learned, our history, our church's history, and just seeing it with your eyes is a different feeling.
Yeah.
Seeing Liturgical Church in the middle of Tel Kepa is a different feeling.
Yeah.
Seeing El Kosh, Rabban Hermes is a different feeling. Seeing King Sennacherib and other, historical sites, vacation homes is a different feeling. When you've studied all of that and you actually go see something, it's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, putting your feet on our ancestral land is a cosmic experience.
Yeah.
That I don't think anybody will understand, and I certainly didn't understand it until I went.
Yeah.
I went in 2019 with my dad for the first time. I wanted to go my entire life. He talked me out of it. And then finally, when my grandpa passed away, he had 2 remaining sisters that he hadn't seen in like 50 years remaining in Iraq. So we went to go visit them and just kind of, share our condolences over their brother, my grandpa, my dad's dad, and connect with them. It was the first time my dad had seen them in 50 years. And that was crazy. And since then, I'd always wanted to go back. And then COVID happened. So I had to stay put until earlier this year, 2023. I went there for Chab Nisan, which is our Akitu, New Year, Assyrian Babylonian New Year celebration, and 30,000 people in the streets celebrating and dancing and flags. It was incredible. So I went there for a month and I traveled all of Iraq from Zaho. Actually went to Turabdin too, but that's not in Iraq, but it's also included within Mesopotamia, Upper Assyria.
Very one of the first areas that were converted, I believe.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool, very trippy place.
Midyat, I want to go there. Mardin looks amazing.
Yeah, man. Midyat, Mardin, Kefro.
Yeah, they look really nice.
Yeah, I went to a lot of places, and we've got all of our Syriac monasteries there. But I spent a month there, and I went all the way down to Basra. Just hopped in different taxis and buses and things, and I went to the Ziggurat, and I went to Ur, I went to Uruk, I went to Nippur, I went to Dur Kurigalzu. I went to a lot of places in between, the temple to Ishtar, temple to Shamash. I mean, I've been very, very involved in our history leading up to that. Yeah. And that's another level, man. Yeah, that's another level. I'm not trying to say our Iraq trip wasn't, it was amazing for what it was, but I mean, going to these temples and like holy sites and cities and things where there's just like broken plates on the ground from like when people were making offerings to the gods and they didn't reuse their plates, they just left them there, and the remnants of like excavation. I was just like, where the heck am I? It was incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. So
even the locals, you were telling me the locals don't even know about some of these places.
The locals just like I grabbed the taxi 10 minutes away.
You would think that you could just, these people just can go anywhere they want, whatever. But especially nowadays with cars and everything, it's just easy to go. See. These people don't know. You were telling me they don't even know that these places exist.
They didn't know. And the other part of it is ISIS didn't just run through Surai territory. It ran through the whole everything. Yeah. Because as I went from town to town, there's like a circle roundabout in most towns. There's like a little city center. You didn't go to Baghdad, but it was also there as well. But in this city center, they'd have all the pictures of the people that they lost during ISIS. And as a Suraya, I always thought like the Muslims didn't experience anything out of ISIS at all. But I was very shocked to see how much, so people kind of kept to themselves. During the wars, they didn't go out different places, and they sure as heck didn't care about archaeological remains because it wasn't pertinent to their survival at all. So, but yeah, I learned about that. And I even took my taxi drivers with me. I'm like, yo, you have not been here before. You're going to come with me. They're like, no, I've come to Seattle. And I'm like, no, listen. So I went and it blew their mind, man. They were just walking in the middle of the desert with these huge temples. And he was like, I should get hello. I'm like, yeah, man.
That's great.
It was amazing. But, the whole Chaldean identity is a really interesting topic because,
sure. And in one part, it really is. I like to be able to explain things.
Yeah.
Just generally explain things and with confidence and conviction.
Same.
It's my job, but I like to do that. I've always liked to do that, just because I don't like to feel doubt. And when somebody asks me, what's your ethnicity? And I say, and growing up, and I'd say Chaldean, and they ask me, what is that? And it's always been hard to explain.
Yeah, isn't it funny? You Google online, and all you see is like Chaldean magic books, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to read that thing.
No, it's been hard to explain because
I'm not supposed to do that.
Like, I haven't figured out. I mean, how? Because if you look at the history, ancient Chaldeans came from the south.
Yeah,
they were in the south. The first mention of Chaldeans in any tablet or anything is around 900 or 1100 BC. Keeping the Bible separate from this conversation.
Yeah.
The only mention of Chaldeans, the first mention, oldest mention is from like 1100 or 900 BC, maybe even 700, but somewhere around like that timeline. Yeah. And that was all the way south. They came from the south.
Right.
South of Basra, Meshan, and then moved north into, eventually into Babylon as they grew. When did they come to Tel Kepo?
But also a very small population. They never really grew all that much.
They weren't the whole population out there. There were Babylonians.
They were a class of people. Yeah. They were a class of people.
No, there were a tribe
Babylon.
of Kaldu, they call them Kaldu, that came from west or southern Arabia or something like that.
Yeah.
But from the south, and they came to an existing state. There were people there already. And, they eventually mixed in with Babylonians probably, but they probably were just like most civilizations to themselves.
Yeah.
As far as the family unit, the community unit, the suburb unit, these things are they don't change very drastically over time. They haven't changed. Just like you can look at America, you can look at any.
Yeah. So one of the things that has intrigued me about our identity is you'd hear a lot of Chaldeans call themselves Surai.
Yeah.
We're Surai.
Where does Sarai, Joe? I know the answer, but let's enlighten Sarai. Yeah. Where does Sarai come from? This word?
So my research, and I'm sure yours, because we've had several discussions on this topic. So Surai, and there's a Chinicoy inscription, Cinecoy. It's from the Luwian and the Phoenician period, where Phoenicians call us Asurai, and then the Luwians call us Surai. And they are all is the same thing, referring to the same people. So it's an inscription with two different languages on it, I believe. And they say the same things because they're translations of each other.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. That's I haven't heard.
Yeah. I was saving this one. Surprise. So no, it's a good one. But we come from the land Ashur, right? Surai comes from Ashurai.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same meaning, same root.
Correct.
In a sense, yeah.
Same root. It comes from
just
Ashur.
Background, if you understand, if you study languages, anybody, Arabic or Semitic languages specifically, even Hebrew, there are root letters that, they share these roots within similar terms, similar nouns, like a noun that has a similar verb. They share the same roots.
Right.
Right.
So the oldest writings that we have show that we called ourselves Ashurai, meaning people from the land Ashur. Assyrian is just a Greek.
Ashuraya is some kind of like Takabnaya,
Yeah.
Takoshnaya, Ashuraya, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's like where you're from. The Aya is the language when you speak in Surah. That's
where you hail from.
Nationality. Yeah, where you hail from. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So you've got words that we use for ourselves: Ashurai, Athurai, because the Persians used the th. The Athurai, the land Athur, or Atur, too, in some dialects. Suriyaye and Surai. And these are all different words from different places that mean the same thing, which is people from the land of Ashur, as opposed to Babel, which was in the south, or Keldu, which was also in the south. So we don't see in any old text relating to our people, pre-Christian and Christian, from early Christian writers like Saint Isaac of Antioch, Theodorus Barconi, Mar Addai himself, Marmari, a disciple of Mar Addai. Yeah. You don't see, and they all refer to Chaldeans in their writings as heretics, soothsayers, demon worshippers, and obviously people that are separate from who they are.
Star worshippers.
Yeah.
Too,
So when we're talking about post-Christian, they call themselves Surai or Suriyaye, Chihai. They adopted what other civilizations called them as well. Bigger civilizations like, Greeks or Phoenicians or Luwians or whatever, because they were trading, they were communing with a lot of these people. They adopted some of these identities that other bigger civilizations would call them after the fall of Assyria.
You mean like from like Ashurai to Author, right?
Yeah, to Author Persian.
Yeah. They're not giving them a different name. They're just it's the pronunciation that they would say. Yeah, just Persia.
Exactly. It's
so like the Persians would say Author because they don't, in their language, they didn't have the Shah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in like Arabic,
they would still say Ashuri.
They would say Ashuri.
Yeah, they say Ashuri.
But I know like in Arabic, they drop a lot of the Shah sounds in Surah, like they'll drop the H and they just use Sa. Like we say Darshan, like I Darshan, I study.
Yeah.
They'll say Edrus or Daris,
We say Darsan, actually.
Yeah, Darsan too, we do say Darsan too.
So I wanted to share some of this evidence that we came across.
You got evidence?
Yeah, so there's evidence and there's also absence of evidence, which is just as helpful. There's no evidence, then...
So you're an attorney, and are you able to tell the difference between good evidence and bad evidence?
Well, so what I look at is there precedent? Is there case law?
Yeah.
Are there laws or statutes that say the same thing or similar things? So what governs? And the discussion about identity is a very interesting and nuanced subject, because I'm not dealing with it the same way.
Especially nowadays.
Like a criminal
Because
case.
you can identify as almost whatever you want nowadays,
sure.
you know? So like the conversation of identity has like changed over time, obviously from like your nationality, where you're from, or your city state, and then, you know, kind of, you know, the overall region where you're from, and then, you know, even religions now have kind of influenced identities and stuff like that.
So here's what I look at.
Yeah.
Are there multiple sources saying the same thing from different periods of time, from different areas, from maybe even different civilizations that acknowledge an identity or an existence of a group of people, right?
Yeah.
Are there writers within our own people that said things about us and said things about others? Is there an absence of evidence or writings out there that validates the existence of a certain identity? In this case, what we're looking for is something that shows us that we are the Chaldeans of ancient Babylon.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're looking for. And what evidence is there? And if we're not them, then who is? And then also, where did we get this name from? Because it didn't just show up overnight.
Well, if we're not them, who is? But then also, who are we?
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's the real, you know, who are we? And if we're not Chaldeans or descendants from ancient Chaldeans, who are there ancient Chaldean people still alive?
Sure.
You know, or descendants of those?
So between 410, this is AD, and 790, in Syriac Christian literature, Syriac is another way of saying Sureth.
Syriac is the Greek colonized version of Assyrian, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Right? So anytime in British colonization or French colonization, anytime you see Syrian or Syriac, it really means Assyrian.
Yeah.
And Suraya and Sureth speaker, Sureth community. That's what that means. Anytime you see Saint Isaac, the Syrian, what they really mean is the Assyrian. Why? Because the Greeks called them Syrian.
Yeah.
And other civilizations, maybe even the Phoenicians.
The Romans, the Romans called the whole area Syria.
Yeah.
So that's where Syria came from. You know?
Exactly. But what they're really referring to is the group of Assyrian people. Yeah. But there is no evidence that a Chaldean identifying Christian ever participated in any of the early synodical councils held by the Church of the East, which is what we were. We only became, Chaldean church.
And this is in 410?
This is between 410 and 790. This is
410 is when the Church of the East was formed.
Exactly.
So, and there was actual structure to it, and they formed 6 different provinces.
Right.
Kirkuk, Arbela, which is Erbil, and Nisibis were 3 in the north. Nisibis was the theological capital and center of the Church of the East.
Exactly.
And then Seleucia Sistafan was the capital, modern-day Baghdad,
right.
Which was the capital of the Persian Empire. So they naturally put the Church of the East headquarters for political reasons in the capital,
exactly,
in the region. And then there were 2 other provinces. It was Basra province and the Meshan province.
Right.
They call them maybe something else, but I mean, just Basra was the region, and the Meshan was the region. So if you look at these regions and the people who grew from those regions, you had the 3 in the north: Nisibis, Kirkuk, and Erbil.
Yeah, Arbailo.
And those are traditionally Assyrian lands. Nineveh was there. That's traditional Assyrian land. The Persians call that land Athur. But like in the south, with Basra and Meshan, Meshan would be the region where like the ancient Chaldeans came from.
Exactly.
Basra would be more the region where like the Elamites were, the Western Persians, the Iranians, those empires.
And
there's not really many Christians, I don't think, from the 2 regions in the south that have, kind of survived, probably because of Arab conquest and other stuff like that. But
no evidence suggests that there ever existed a church province called Chaldea, and the territory that constituted ancient Chaldea was known as Meshan, like we discussed.
Yeah.
And that's situated in present-day Iraq and Kuwait, like near the Gulf.
Yeah.
No references to Chaldean Christians in any ecclesiastical.
Meshan is probably more like Kuwait.
Yeah.
Yeah, more the Kuwaiti region.
Exactly. Yeah. Like even south of Basra, because Basra is not the furthest south.
Yeah, Basra is not the furthest south.
You can go pretty far south from Basra. But there's no references to any Chaldean Christians in any ecclesiastical correspondence or letters between early church fathers. There's no existence of any Chaldean identifying saint ever existing in any of the early hagiographies.
You would think that there would be, hard evidence if there was a Chaldean Nestorian, right? I am a Chaldean Nestorian. Where were these groups? Where were these sects?
Yeah.
Where are these really symbols? But then the other thing is so there's no really record of any Chaldeans that were part of the Church of the East. There were references. All the references were that they were these group of people in the south.
Heretics, fortune tellers, soothsayers, dream interpreters, and perhaps demon worshippers.
And where were these? We found these in? Where were these statements in?
Oh, in our early church fathers' texts. So Marmari, Mar Addai, St. Isaac of Antioch, Tē'ōdōrōs, Barkoni.
So like in the teachings of Marmari.
Exactly.
And those like the teachings, not just like side documents. These are like religious documents that we're talking about the Chaldeans being heretics and soothsayers and in that regard.
Yeah, maybe we'll put it up on the video and show people.
Sure, yeah.
So let's talk about this Meshan area, because that's where the ancient Chaldea was. Meshan was home to diverse communities that included Iranians, which are Elamites, Persians, Parthians, Jews, Nabateans, and descendants of the ancient Chaldeans. Remember, this is south, way south. We don't have any cemeteries there. We have no villages there. We have no real connection to southern Mesopotamia.
No one ever talks about it.
That Gulf, Kuwait. Actually, you know where it would be? It would be like those marshlands that I went to in Chibaish, which is sort of near Basra. People have seen those travel to Iraq thing with the Mesopotamian marshes and the guy in the canoe. And, like those are probably the real Chaldeans, if I'm being honest. Like marsh dwellers. Very nice people, though, by the way. Very, very hospitable. But the region was also inhabited by merchants of various backgrounds that worked at Meshan's port station in the Persian Gulf. We're not port people. We're mountain people. We're plains people, but not Gulf people. We're not historically at all. And Syriac Christians in the Meshan area, particularly those of Persian descent, were appointed to the rank of metropolitan bishops over this region. But they never self-identified as Chaldeans. So in some of Dr. Sebastian Brock, he was a British scholar, and I believe he's an Assyriologist or Babylonian researcher and scholar. He said, in contrast, the Babylonian heritage of the further south elicited no such sense of continuity among the Christian community living in South Mesopotamia. Indeed, one can observe an active disassociation in that the term Chaldean normally designates a pagan astrologer. At the end of the day, we're on the same truth-seeking journey as everybody else.
Yeah.
I think we've done so in a very organized manner, in a way that kind of gathers unbiased research. Listen, if I'm Chaldean, I'm Chaldean. If I'm Assyrian, I'm Assyrian. If I'm Syriac, I'm Syriac. If I'm Brazilian, I'm Brazilian. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to get to the truth of where I'm at. I'm not trying to push some ideology on anybody here. Yeah. I'm basically just sharing my opinions on the research that I've done, which happens to be basically the same finding as you. And you've done this individually, separately.
Not even just me. It's other people too. I know too. It's not just me.
Talk about a serendipitous meeting. We show up.
Collection of the minds. The meeting of the minds. Like
we've done this, and with your engineering, very like 0 and 1's background. Completely unemotional. Like, hey, let's just get to the bottom of this. Researching background, and same thing with mine as an attorney and finance background.
And like the earliest text, so I mentioned was. That reference Chaldeans was around 1100. So I did a genetic test. And the genetic test told me my genetic father with the last Y chromosome mutation ranges from a period of 2000 BC to 1600
And in
BC.
what area, what did they call you in that DNA test?
Well, I've run it through many models, and majority of the models are like 98, 99% Assyrian.
Yeah.
When you run through the models. You have to understand that these models there's tons of different models. So if you put it in a wrong model, you can get completely like wrong analysis.
No, it's out of curiosity. When you got this result back, did you already like do the research and you had an idea of what it might come out as, or was it a complete surprise?
Because you can't. There's no way you can like there's no way you can tell.
No, I'm saying about the research about like your roots. Had you already done that sort of research before you took the DNA test?
Oh, I had done everything. The DNA test was like 4 months ago.
Just confirm. Oh, I see,
the DNA test. But the question is,
so you weren't surprised.
I have a genetic father. I have a genetic father that's between 2000 BC and 1700 BC. That range, predating 700, 800 years before the first Chaldean reference.
That's interesting.
So how am I supposed to resolve my mind around that? How do I reconcile around that exactly?
So you've got a Finnish professor of the Arabic language and Islamic studies at the University of Edinburgh, 2006, says, in the South, the term Chaldean had too strong of a pagan connotation to be accepted by Christians for themselves. The term Chaldean remained pagan in tenor, okay? Like vehemently pagan. We don't have...
Chaldea was like the word, almost like it was like the word pagan. Back in the day, it was like that was like how do you say pagan today? You would say Chaldea.
Insult, by the way. We're going to go on a different. We're going to examine more sources between year 154 all the way to 14, 1500.
Should I just read these sources real quick?
Yeah, read the sources.
Yeah, Bardaisan, 154 AD. Aphrahat, 270. Mar Afrēm of Nisibin, 306. Teaching of Mar Addai, 300. Ishāq of Antioch, 460. Babai the Great, 551. I mean, these are like ancient.
Yeah.
Tē'ōdōrōs bar Kōnai. Syriac, that was 750. Syriac Teachings of the Apostles, 900. Bar Bahlul, 900. Mar Abdishō bar Brikā, 1318. The Hudrā, 1400 to 1500.
And that's a liturgical book that we use.
The Hudrā is what the Chaldean Catholic use.
Yeah, that's our own liturgy, right?
Yeah.
And these are all our people. Pre-schism, post-schism, East and Western Syriac, which are our own.
So just for the listeners, these sources are our own sources by our own people, by our own leaders and historians.
Early Christian writers.
Exactly.
Right?
So if we're going to look for anybody about identity, these are the sources we would really truly look at.
Right.
And then we would, we would look at all the other sources from other people, really to
confirm.
Well,
here's the thing. We call ourselves Chaldeans or Assyrians. These are names given to us by outsiders. That's the fact of the matter. We never called ourselves any of those. Assyrians never called themselves Assyrians. The Greek did.
They didn't speak English until 50 years ago.
Exactly. So Chaldean is a Latin term for Kaldu or Chaldea. So there are references from, we'll go down to...
There are so many references here. When a man believes in God, he should separate himself from divinations and sorceries and Chaldean arts and magic. I see the translations right here.
Yeah.
You have this is Greek on the left and then Surat on the right. It looks Greek or Roman or Greek or Latin.
So,
looks like Latin.
So the remains of Bardaisan, which is our first reference, states that there are men who are called Chaldeans and others who love this knowledge of the art of astrology, which is referring to the Chaldeans as astrologers. And the book of the Chaldeans, which are in Babylon, in which are written what the stars affect by their associations at the nativities of men. And really, this sounds like a modern day horoscope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How the stars affect this and that. And it's written in the book of
an astrology reading.
Yeah, right. So what's your rising sign? You actually know that?
Yeah, I do actually. So I'm a Pisces.
You're Pisces, sun sign.
My sun, and then I'm a Capricorn.
Capricorn rising?
No, my moon is a Capricorn, and I'm a rising. I forget now. Shoot.
Dang, bro. You gotta.
The listeners they're gonna fill me in. I gotta check what's that app?
I know. So I got a Libra sun and a Gemini.
I'm a Libra, actually. Yeah, my rising sign is Libra.
Your rising is Libra.
Yeah, with the wind, right? Yeah.
Air sign. Yeah.
I'm a fish in the wind.
Yep. And then I got my Taurus. I had this written down in my notes, so I just pulled it up. Taurus moon. And my Venus is Sagittarius.
All this stuff really originated with the Chaldeans.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we are Chaldeans. Done.
No. Yeah.
So interesting. It's written in the book of the Chaldeans that whenever Mercury is placed with Venus in the mansion of Mercury, which is the house of Mercury, it produces painters and sculptors and money changers. But when they are in the mansion of Venus, they produce perfumers and dancers and singers and poets. So really, Chaldeans are the ones that we have to credit all this astrology stuff. But nowhere in our culture have we preserved this astrological
no, I mean,
inclination towards astrology. But in our discoveries, though, the Mandaeans have. They very much preserved this astrological, cultural.
Sabians, right? Same
exactly.
Sabians, Mandaeans,
Sabians, Sabians, the Baptist. We'll go into that a little bit later, but
yeah, that's a different. There's a whole report on that, and there's actually even genetics on that one too. I've looked into.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting. And the Mandaean people are very interesting people. But going back to they have the sign, they still do their astrology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if some would argue that Chaldeans were deported or emigrated, millions of them,
all sent to the north,
all across the world of Mesopotamia, and it just doesn't. I feel like if that was the case, millions of people, there would be hundreds of thousands of relics of stargazing relics.
Sure.
Right, of astrological relics of some kind, clay tablets that have survived, just like everything else.
They're just as the evidence is not there.
The evidence is. You're right.
So Aphrahat said, I think you read this quote already, but when a man believes in God, he should separate himself from divinations and sorceries and Chaldean arts and magic. And the Chaldean arts and magic is a direct reference to what the Chaldeans were about. Pagan, magic, spells, and worshippers and sorcerers. We've also got St. Ephrem in his hymns in the 4th century. The pagan priests felt the truth. The magicians also felt it. The Chaldeans also felt it. The diviners also felt it. The possessed felt it. Those pagans who erred perceived that with its divinity, it destroyed the graven images. So he's referring to the Chaldeans as a separate group of people, even though he's a Suraya. He's saying those people over there, those Chaldeans, they're this, they're that, the other. He's not saying those Chaldeans, they're us,
Yeah.
St. Ephrem also said...
Just a little disclaimer. I mean, it is possible that maybe one or two converted from the astrological heresy
maybe
to the church, right? I mean, there was conversion going on, but there's no systemic group where there was a major conversion.
No, there wasn't. There's nothing. Because the teachings would have said that. The writings would have said
hey,
that. I encountered these groups of Chaldean, and I got them to convert.
And then at this time,
Hallelujah.
This is such an early period of Christianity. There would have been, they would have still stated that they were Chaldean.
Right.
And there would have been maybe a Chaldean priest that were saying they're Chaldean metropolitan.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say bishop in Surat? It's like
Matran.
Matran, yeah. So... there were no Matrans that were ever identified as a Chaldean.
That's true. Yeah, St. Ephrem wrote a lot about the people that raged and raved and blared the trumpet. They rejoiced that he, Emperor Julian, was a soothsayer and were jubilant that he was a Chaldean. So again, Chaldean is synonymous with a soothsayer, a dream interpreter, a fortune teller, astrologer, horoscope reader.
I think the most what did Addai say? Because he's somebody that all of our churches know, all of our members really know. What did he say?
So Addai said, "And be ye," said he, "far removed from false swearing and from wicked homicide and from dishonest testimony, which is connected with adultery and from magic arts, and from which there is no mercy, and from soothsaying and divination and fortune tellers, and from fate and nativities, of which the deluded Chaldeans make their boast, and from the stars and the signs of the zodiac, in which the foolish Chaldeans put their trust." Now, if this were his own people, I think he'd be speaking a little differently. saying, man, my people, why are you doing this? Like, let's do it. But he refers to them as a completely different group of people who he has zero respect for. He thinks they're messing up.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of just the same thing of all these teachings. And if there were a group of people, Chaldeans, that had converted to Christianity, it would have been a big deal.
Yeah.
Because this is the view of the overall view of the
They'd
entire
be rejoicing
church.
if they got entire
They would be rejoicing, yeah.
Yeah. But these
like,
Chaldeans,
we've got the heretics. We converted heretics.
Yeah.
They'd be rejoicing. They would probably have a hymn about it.
They tried to do it, actually. And some of these, they tried to do it, but these Chaldeans, they held on to their pagan ways, and they would not convert. Babai the Great said, Hnana, referring to a Chaldean, the Chaldean, the heretic. We've got Tē'ōdōrōs Barkoni saying, the heresy of Chaldeanism preceded the other heresies in its springing up. For Bardaisan says that Enoch was the name of its originator. So heresy is synonymous with being Chaldean. Magician, soothsayer, we've said it a few times. The Syriac teachings of the apostle also says that whoever resorts to magicians and soothsayers and Chaldeans and puts the confidence in fates and nativities, which they hold fast, who know not God, let him also, as a man that knows not God, be dismissed from the ministry and not minister again. Chaldean, also work of the stars by Bahlul. More Abdishō, but Brikā says that there were 2 volumes against the Chaldeans and another against Porphyry, the heretic. And also the Hudrā, which we share in common with the Church of the East, says that the Chaldeans stood stunned and raised their fingers saying, God of the faithful is great. Their unseen God will save them. And they're talking about the Surai, the Suriaye Shichaye, or Mshihaye. If they said that the God of the faithful is great, they would be talking about themselves if they themselves were Suriaye and Mshihaye. But instead, they were Chaldean and saw themselves as a group separate from those of us. And that's in our own liturgy.
It seems that they did everything. The Church of the East wrote enough statements to say we are not Chaldean.
Yeah.
There are enough in there to say that we are not Chaldean and that they were against the Chaldeans. They may have tried to convert some of them, but they clearly didn't convert many of them.
Right.
And, how they went from, they were all in the south, Meishan province. And it seems that they were not successful.
That's correct.
And there were not many Chaldeans that joined the Church of the East.
Yeah.
These are writings from 400 to 1400, 1,000 years of writings with this viewpoint.
That's right.